So far this season, what has been Nico Iamaleava's best attribute? Give me some choices, Caleb. I feel pretty strongly about this, so I'm going to go ahead and throw one out there. And if you want to choose a different word, you can. But I'm going to say wherewithal, self-improvement, however you want to do that, because I came away from the NC State game, interception. I came away from the Oklahoma game, 2 strip sacks. I think, did he also have an interception in that game too, Caleb? I came away from that game thinking, man, he doesn't protect the football. And that just, I don't care how great of a quarterback you are, with the exception you pointed out, Brett Favre. That's probably the one exception where you look at a guy and you're like, okay, that's fine. Go ahead and make the throws you need to. But I want to go with wherewithal, self-improvement, however you want to put it. But when we put it on the YouTube page, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. What are some of our options?
Let's go wherewithal. Let's go limiting interceptions. Dave, this is going to be a shocker to you, but are you ready for the stat?
Well, but that's where I was kind of going with. Okay, let's go self-improvement instead of wherewithal.
Yeah, self-improvement. You can go self-improvement. I'm going to go limiting interceptions. And do you want me to give you the stat for that, or do you want me to wait for that?
No, let's go ahead and get our poll question going, and then
Okay.
we'll set it up.
Wherewithal, limiting interceptions, and a willingness to run. Even though he's awkward and, like you said, he looks like a giraffe, he is willing to run if it's there.
A baby giraffe, I think, is the term I actually used, but that's okay.
Yeah. And let's say accepting a larger burden placed on him, because and I want to break that down, but that's basically because I think he's been asked to do a lot more than other quarterbacks in this system, honestly, including Hendon Hooker.
Okay, I agree. And Alexander, he says, question, are we being critical of Nico based on the expectations set by the media, us included? I'm curious to know the percentage of 5-star quarterbacks who have had first-year Heisman-type seasons. I don't know. Johnny Manziel wasn't a 5-star, so, I mean, he's the only one.
Jameis Winston, Johnny Manziel, Jameis Winston, Tim Tebow. We talking about first season starting? I mean, all three of them won Heisman's their first season starting. So,
okay. So it does happen, but it's unusual, right?
I don't think it's as unusual this time, or not in this day in college football. I don't think it's as unusual as we think. Again, I just named. That was off the top of my head. 2010 was Cam Newton's first season starting, if you think about it, in Division I football. I mean, I guess that doesn't really count. But
Can I tell you a quick Uncle Dave story of why Tennessee didn't recruit Cam Newton? Have I told you this before?
Lane Kiffin didn't want him, right?
They went to Blaine Community College, and he was suspended for the first half of the game. And Jim Chaney came back and told Lane, and they got together, and they just decided, we don't want a guy that's not a better leader. And he wasn't a great leader necessarily.
Wait a minute. But then
he was so good, you should have taken him.
And also, are we talking about the same Jim Chaney and Lane Kiffin that got Tyler Bray to be the future of Tennessee football? Yeah. They didn't have a bad leader. And also, for the record, you may not know this, Jim Chaney also did not want Ladd McConkey during his second time around at Tennessee. Ladd McConkey was a big Vol fan, wanted to go to Tennessee. Jim Chaney was like, thanks, but no thanks. We don't want you on our team.
Today's tough question is now. What is Nico Iamaleava's strongest attribute now that we've seen him play for almost an entire season? Today's tough question is brought to you by Banks & Jones, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
I also want to remind you the show is brought to you in part by Chattanooga Mortgage. Congratulations, your home just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier. They'll help you fix your credit too. Chat Mortgage with 2 T's, chatmortgage.com. All right, Caleb. So what are our poll question suggestions as we get off and rolling? Because absolutely to the exact opposite of what Alexander said, I think this has been a successful season for Nico. given what he has had to deal with. So this is not a rip Nico session at all. I, as a matter of fact, am very impressed by the maturity of the young man. So, Caleb, what do you got, sir?
All right. So, what is Nico Iamaleava's best attribute? Self-improvement, limiting interceptions, willingness to run, accepting a larger burden.
Okay, I don't think it's willingness to run because I don't think he ever still is completely comfortable. He will be, but I don't think he is now. I think it's self-improvement and wherewithal. I had real questions because of the offensive tackle issue. If he'd go into a shell, there was part of me, like a very small part. It takes 50% of my thought process to actually write a column about it. So I wasn't going to write this. But there was at one point when the offensive tackle play was so bad and I wasn't sure that Lance Hurd and John Campbell would get better, that I was like, they're going to lose another game to Alabama or Florida or somebody else. And they should, if it were the NFL, put him on the bench like Bryce Young. Let him sit there and watch and learn. You can't do that because the window of playing time. So to me, it's not even close. It's his wherewithal and self-improvement. That's 43% right now. Limiting interceptions, 12%. I think that, to me, that falls under the self-improvement. Willingness to run. I don't think there was any doubt that he wants to run. I just think Tennessee had some questions about how much they wanted to run him. And accepting a larger burden, 27%. That's a very good one. That might come under self-improvement, but not really. He came into this game or into this season and said, I'm ready to be the boss. There's a lot of quarterbacks that I've seen that were not ready for that, even if they didn't know it. So if you had to choose between those four, what do you think?
I'm actually going to go, and I know I'm not one of those like, oh, quarterback doesn't turn the ball over, so he's good. So that's not my cliche in this offense and what Josh Heupel does, but I think that it is limiting interceptions, Dave. And there's a key stat that's going to tell you why.
Lay it on me, brother. I know you got some stats.
Did you know that Nico Iamaleava has the second fewest interceptions of anybody that has started at least 8 games in the SEC this year?
Wow. Who's number one? Jackson Dart?
No, number one is actually Diego Pavia. Okay. Diego Pavia has 3. Nico and Jackson Dart are tied for number 2 with 4. But yeah, it's Nico has done an amazing job at. Here's what he's done. And by the way, he's gone 3 straight games without throwing a pick. All of his interceptions were bad interceptions that he threw into coverage that either he shouldn't have made the throw because he made a bad read or a receiver broke off on the route. But have you ever noticed, Dave, when he does throw, he throws into tight windows and he's able to put the ball in a place where only the receiver can catch it. That doesn't mean the receiver will catch it, by the way. That's been his issue, is the receiver hasn't been catching it. But have you not noticed that he's been putting the ball in a place where it's not like the defensive back can catch it? And I think that's actually Nico's best attribute. He'll thread a lot of needles.
That would be with the exception of the NC State game.
But that wasn't threading a needle. He just threw it just straight into coverage to the wrong guy off a bad read because Brew McCoy broke off the route.
Okay. I would argue it's a little bit of both. But
no, I'm talking about when a guy's tightly covered. Nico will throw it, but he'll throw it in a way where only the receiver can make the catch. It's just the problem is the receivers haven't been making the catch.
Okay, that gives me a little bit of a new jumping off point then. Has he been too conservative in some of his past selections?
No.
Well, there are a couple of balls. There are a couple of balls that he was either inaccurate or too conservative. And I will take there was a fly route to Chris Brazzell earlier in the season. There have been a couple of other plays that I thought he should have put up for grabs a little bit more. So I almost think he's overly conservative, but that's not bad. I mean, look at when Tennessee was at its best, and any team when it's at its best, and this team with a defense. I think that probably if you're projecting ahead, let's say January 2023, Caleb, and you're saying, what's this team going to be? this team is going to be more explosive and better with Nico at the helm because he's a better option than Joe Milton, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
I think somewhere along the lines, be it spring practice or whatever the case may be, that Tennessee's coaches said this team is going to be an inside run team with a great defense. And they probably went to Nico and said, you don't need to be the guy that turns the ball over and undermines that. You don't have to do everything. Your thoughts on that? 30 seconds from Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. So you say he's taken on a lot of the role, but he hasn't taken any more of the role than Hendon Hooker has. As a matter of fact, I would say he's taken less. Do you think they went to him at any point and said, this is the type of football team that you don't have to make every single play? Or do you and I differ on that?
I totally different. I'm trying. Yeah. And I got to break this down for you. And this is where, Dave, I got to be honest, this is where analytics do come in. And this is where we need to be. Well, no, I mean, this is honestly the truth, though, because we got to be honest about this. You say Nico's being too conservative and they're not asking him to do plays. Well, Dave, if that were or they're not asking him to take the same level of risk, but he has the second fewest interceptions among SEC passers. I get that's why you would say that. But his yards per attempt are 8.1, which is right at the conference average. More importantly, his adjusted yards per attempt are 8.21, which is 0.8 yards above the conference average, which means he's throwing more aggressive balls through the air relative to the fewer interceptions he's thrown. So no, I'm not really willing to concede that and his number of attempts, by the way, is 254, which is fifth in the SEC. So he's fifth to seventh roughly in adjusted yards per pass attempt, and attempts, but he's down to second to last in interceptions. That's not him being too conservative, honestly. That's literally him throwing the ball in a way that it can't be intercepted and doing a really good job of it. And I'm just going to, now that's analytics. Let me go eye test. You did not see them throw over the middle with Hendon Hooker like this, the way they do with Nico. Now, maybe this is Joey Halzle and maybe it's an issue and maybe that's why you think they need to move on from Joey Halzle. But Dave, they asked Nico to take way more risk when he throws the ball than they ever asked Hendon Hooker. With Hendon Hooker, it was go route seams down the sideline to Jalen Hyatt, wide open, or Velus Jones, or whoever. Matt, you're saying 0.8 above average is essentially average. I agree. The point is, if your yards per attempt are average, your adjusted yards per attempt are average, your number of attempts are above average, but your interception count is way low. He's not throwing these quick screens. He's not throwing these safe routes. He's throwing as aggressively as anybody possibly could relative to his few interceptions. And again, Dave, I'm sorry, you can't tell. You never saw Hendon Hooker throw these passes over the middle in the coverage. He was never asked to do that. Not once.
Sure. True. Had guys running bear a lot, and it played to his strengths to throw the ball downfield, correct? Because he had an elite deep ball touch.
He had an elite deep ball touch, and the offense hadn't been figured out yet. Or there hadn't been a way to slow down the offense.
Okay, so new poll question. Read that to me, and then let's tease that a little bit, Caleb.
All righty. So Nico has been good, great, or okay this season.
Okay. Peak IV hydration. South Knoxville and Sevierville, live life to your fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV hydration. We can drop that in the chat. peakivhydration.com. So far, nobody thinks great. 71% say good. Okay, say 29%. I'm going to go ahead and say great, especially since the halftime of the Alabama game. Nico has gone out there and beaten two rivals in Alabama and Florida. I know expectations were high. Part of that was our fault, guys. Okay, so hit like and subscribe if you think we're idiots. But, Caleb, I'm going to go great. Maybe I'm by myself here, but given the offensive tackle issues and the fact that, honestly, they didn't blow it against Oklahoma and he was willing to throttle down, I think it's been great. Now, Derek says great would have won the Arkansas game, but you still had the offensive tackle issues. And to me, that's what ultimately has undermined him. Now, all that being said, here's what's most exciting about it, Caleb. I believe the offensive tackle issues are taken care of. And I've talked to people within the program that feel really good about what Lance Hurd is doing now. So if Tennessee makes the college football playoff and you eliminate that Achilles heel from the 2024 season that Nico had, Tennessee can make a run at something. I firmly believe that this is one of those teams, maybe like Florida, that has continued to get better throughout the season. The Georgia game notwithstanding, I get that. I just think that Georgia, they just outfoxed Tennessee on that day. They outcoached Tennessee, and there are a couple of places where Georgia might slightly be better in talent. But I thought the talent gap has closed significantly. You, though, disagree with that last part. So tell me why Nico hasn't or has played great this season.
Oh, I haven't. I don't agree he's played great. I think he's played good. I was defending him on all this stuff before. I'm surprised you went to great because you were trying to say he was too conservative just a second ago with his throw.
No. Too conservative. I'm talking about 5 balls that I would have put up for grabs. And in retrospect, I think he would too. As a whole, though, I mean, he's thrown, 300 passes? I mean, I'm nitpicking, especially, I'm nitpicking with a redshirt freshman, Caleb.
Okay, so I think he's been good. Look, you can't say great when you bring up the Arkansas game because that wasn't just, I get there was a tackle issue and it was a bad tackle issue. But Dave, Nico was really, really bad in that game. Okay, we have to be honest. He was bad. And his panic at the end of on the last drive, I'm sorry, I can't get past that. I can't get past the way he panicked on the last drive. And
okay, I just think your bar of success is higher than mine. Mine is, this is still a redshirt freshman, which you...
Mine is my bar of success is don't panic on a last-minute drive. I mean, I don't think Eric Ainge was great his freshman year at Tennessee in 2004, but he was able to manage a game-winning drive against Florida to set up the James Woolhoy field goal. He didn't fumble a snap because his palms were so sweaty.